Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into a world that's all around us, and yeah, even inside of us, but is totally invisible. We are talking about pathogens, the unseen invaders that make us sick. So let's follow their incredible hidden journey.
I mean, really think about that for a second. We spend so much time and energy worrying about the dangers we can see, but what about the ones we can't? This isn't just some sci-fi concept, it's the reality our immune systems face every single day. So let's pull back the curtain and see the tactics these microscopic invaders use to get past our defenses.
All right, first things first, let's get our key terms straight. Pathogen. Put simply, it's anything that causes a disease. And the crucial part here is its relationship with its host. That's us. They're not just passing through, they move in, they set up shop, and they cause harm.
Now, don't make the mistake of thinking pathogen is just one thing, like a single type of germ. No way. It's a huge, diverse family. You've got the famous ones, bacteria and viruses, but also fungi, protozoans, and even things like helminths, which are basically parasitic worms. It's a whole rogues gallery of troublemakers.
This right here, this is their entire game plan. See, it's not enough for them to just get inside. Their real goal is to multiply and then actively interfere with how our bodies are supposed to work. And that damage they cause? Well, that's what we feel as symptoms. It's a direct result of their mission.
So, to really understand how these invasions work, we need to track a specific culprit. Let's put one particular bacterium under the microscope, Salmonella typhi. This is the little guy responsible for typhoid fever.
You know, for any pathogen to succeed, its first mission is brutally simple. Just survive. And our bodies are an incredibly tough place to live. For an invader like Salmonella typhi, which usually gets into our food, it first has to survive the intense acid bath of the stomach. That's not a fluke, it's a critical adaptation for its survival.
Okay, so if it survives that initial acid attack, the invasion begins. And you should really think of it like a carefully planned heist. The pathogen has a target, it has a route, and it has a goal. It's this whole sequence of events designed to get past all of the body's security systems.
So here it is, the 4-step playbook for this heist. Step 1, ingestion. It gets in through contaminated food or water. We just covered Step 2, somehow surviving the stomach. From there, it slips into the small intestine. And for the final move, and this is brilliant, it hijacks our own circulatory system, using our bloodstream as a superhighway to get to other organs. It's a terrifyingly effective strategy.
So the heist is a success. The pathogen is in, and it's spreading. But what does that actually feel like for the host? Well, this is where the damage starts to show, and the body's alarm systems start going haywire.
These symptoms, they're not random. Think of them as the body's alarm bells, just blaring. That feeling of weakness, the stomach pain, the headache, it's all the direct result of that pathogen multiplying and messing with your body's systems. Your body is screaming that it's under attack.
And then there's the fever. We're not talking a little warm here. We're talking a sustained, high fever hanging out between 39 and 40 degrees Celsius. That's up around 104 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a relentless, draining heat. It's a blazing sign that your body is in an all-out war.
And right here, you can see just how high the stakes are. In a typical case, yeah, you get the fever, the weakness, but the body usually fights it off. But if it gets severe, the consequences are dire. The infection can lead to intestinal perforation. That means literally tearing a hole in the intestine, which can absolutely be fatal. The pathogen's success could mean the host's ultimate failure.
Okay, seeing how bad this can get, the obvious question is, how do we stop this from ever happening? So let's zoom back out for a minute and look at our own strategy for defense.
And what's amazing is that it all comes back to the very beginning of the invasion. Since Salmonella typhi gets in through contaminated food and water, our single most powerful weapon is hygiene. Simple cleanliness. Clean water, properly cooked food, washing your hands, it breaks the chain of transmission. It stops the heist before it can even start.
And that's really the big takeaway here. This is why it all matters. Understanding our enemy, knowing its playbook, its route, its weaknesses, is absolutely fundamental to keeping ourselves and our whole community safe. This knowledge is what powers public health. It's how we build our defenses.
So we'll leave you with this thought. We've just followed the journey of one single type of bacterium, and it has this complex, multi-stage plan just to survive and invade. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other microscopic masterminds are out there with their own unique strategies just waiting for a chance to strike?
Microscopic world. It's a place just swarming with invisible bad guys. We're going to meet the entire rogues gallery. You know, the culprits behind some of the worst diseases humanity has ever faced.
But before we get to the whole lineup, let's kick things off with a real head-scratcher, a true medical mystery. How could one woman who swore she never felt sick a single day in her life end up as America's most famous super spreader? I mean, how is that even possible? Okay, let's get right into it. This story, it's a classic for a reason. It starts with a woman named Mary, and a secret she didn't even know she was keeping, a deadly one.
So, meet Mary Mullen. You probably know her by her infamous nickname, Typhoid Mary. And her job? Well, that's the absolute key to this whole tragedy. She was a cook.
And this is the kicker, the really crucial part. Mary was what we now call an asymptomatic carrier. Think about that. She felt totally fine, never had a single symptom. But inside her, she was carrying the typhoid bacteria. For years, without a clue, she was spreading it to dozens and dozens of people through the meals she made. Her story is just this perfect, chilling example of how these invisible enemies can slip right past our defenses.
So Mary's story is a wild one, right? But it's really just an example of one kind of microscopic troublemaker. The truth is, there's a whole lineup of these invisible invaders out there. So let's open up the case files and meet the whole microscopic rogues gallery. All right, first up on our list, bacteria. Now these little guys are single-celled organisms, and they're literally everywhere. Most of them are totally harmless, but a few are the masterminds behind some infamous diseases. We're talking about everything from pneumonia to the plague. They're like tiny, self-sufficient outlaws, living and multiplying all on their own. Okay, so take a look at this. It's a perfect tale of two very different sicknesses. On one side, you've got pneumonia. That's a bacterial job, targeting the deepest parts of your lungs, those little air sacs called alveoli. It can get really serious, filling them with fluid. But then, you have the common cold. We've all had it, it's miserable, for sure. But it's a totally different kind of attack, by a totally different kind of culprit, hitting a totally different spot. And that culprit is the virus. You know, if bacteria are outlaws, viruses are more like hijackers. They're way, way smaller, and they can't even reproduce by themselves. So what do? They have to invade our own living cells, like the ones in your nose when you have a cold, and basically force them to become little virus-making factories. It's a hostile takeover on a cellular level. And that whole hijacking process, you know, the coughing, the stuffy nose, the feeling sorry for yourself misery. Yep, that's your body dealing with the fallout for about 3 to 7 days, which I think we can all agree feels like an eternity, before it finally manages to kick those hijackers out.
Okay, next up in our rogues gallery is the protozoa. Now these are also single-celled, but don't lump them in with bacteria. They're way more complex. They're parasites, and they're behind some of the oldest and most stubborn diseases we're still trying to beat, like the absolutely devastating malaria and amoebic dysentery.
Moving on. Next in the lineup, we have the helminths. And, you know, there's no nice way to put this. These are parasitic worms. The two big ones we're going to look at are the roundworm and something called the filarial worm.
And it's wild how differently these two worms operate. The roundworm, that's an intestinal parasite. It gets in through contaminated food or water and basically sets up camp in your gut, causing all sorts of problems like internal bleeding. But the filarial worm, it's much sneakier. It uses a mosquito as its getaway car, getting injected straight into you. It then infects the lymphatic system, which can lead to that awful chronic swelling we know as elephantiasis.
And for our final member of the rogues gallery, let's talk about fungi. We're talking about organisms like Microsporum, which is the culprit behind ringworm. And yeah, they love to grow in exactly the places you'd guess. Warm, moist environments. Think locker rooms, sweaty socks, you get the picture. Now, here's a fun fact, or maybe not so fun. Despite the name, ringworm has absolutely nothing to do with worms. Zero. It's actually one of the most common fungal infections out there.
It's what causes those dry, scaly patches on your skin that itch like crazy. And it's super easy to pass around. You can get it from soil or from something as innocent as sharing a towel or a comb.
Okay, so we've met the whole lineup, from bacteria to fungi. But now I want to do a deep dive into what might be the most complex, most elaborate operation in the entire microbial underworld. Let's call it the parasite's two-host heist, starring the malaria parasite.
So that really begs the question, right? How on earth does one single bite from a tiny little mosquito unleash such an incredibly complex two-stage attack on the human body? It sounds like something out of science fiction. Let's walk through the playbook step by step. Step 1. Infection. An infected female Anopheles mosquito bites someone, injecting the Plasmodium parasites. Step 2. Multiplication. The parasites make a beeline for the liver to multiply like crazy. Then they launch an invasion of our red blood cells. Step 3. The attack. This is where it gets nasty. They burst out of the red blood cells, releasing this toxin that causes those terrible cycles of chills and high fever. Step 4. The getaway. A new mosquito comes along, bites the infected person, and sucks up the parasites. And finally, Step 5. The prep. The parasites develop inside that new mosquito, travel to its salivary glands, and just wait, ready to infect the next person. It's an absolutely brilliant and devastatingly effective two-host heist.
Okay, so we've seen the bad guys. They're sneaky, they're complex, and they are definitely dangerous. So the big question is, how do we fight back? Well, that brings us to our absolute first line of defense. Good old prevention and control.
Strategy number 1 is all about hygiene. Personal hygiene, public hygiene, the whole shebang. And honestly, it's the basics, stuff our parents told us. Keeping our bodies clean, making sure our drinking water and food are clean, and dealing with waste properly. It sounds simple, but these measures are absolutely crucial for stopping diseases like typhoid and ascariasis in their tracks.
Defense strategy number 2 is all about controlling the vectors. Think of them as the getaway drivers or the middlemen of the disease world. We're talking about mosquitoes and other insects. So what do? We get rid of standing water where they breed. We use mosquito nets. We can even introduce fish like Gumbusia that literally eat the mosquito larvae. It's all about breaking that chain of transmission for diseases like malaria and filariasis.
So, prevention is key, for sure. But what happens when these invaders break through our defenses? Well, that brings us to our final section, and honestly, it's a really hopeful one. It's all about how science has stepped up and given us some incredible tools to fight back. I mean, just look at this track record of medical victories. It's staggering. The discovery of antibiotics? That was a total game changer, our first real weapon against bacteria. Then you have vaccination programs that allowed us to do the impossible, completely wipe smallpox, a truly terrible disease, off the face of the earth. And we've brought others like polio and tetanus to their knees. Now, looking to the future, biotechnology is promising a whole new generation of even better, safer vaccines. It's truly amazing.
So we have won some incredible victories in this constant war. We've conquered giants like smallpox, but the fight is never really over. And that leaves us with one final, pretty sobering thought to chew on. What invisible invader is coming next?